Hello. So I had so much fun doing a cocktail video on Mar a couple of weeks ago that I figured I would try to do another one. And this one try to hit the topic of the Mai Tai once again, and maybe make a Mai Tai this time. I've talked about it before in a previous video. So the Mai Tai, a drink of somewhat dubious origins, but the canonical recipe comes from Trader Vic in 1944. And it has been described as basically a very nutty rum margarita. That's Martin Kale's take on it, and it's basically true. So you're taking a sour, you're using for the sweet a mix of triple sec and or not triple. I'm sorry, orange Curaçao and Orgeat. I pronounced it Orgeat previously because it really looks like it should be. Everyone else on the internet is saying Orgeat, so I'm going to say Orgeat as well. And it's relatively easy drink to make, and yet at the same time it's kind of an impossible drink to make because if you look at the original specs on these things, it is full of stuff that is basically no longer exists. All right, so I'm going to read this out. The original recipes from the Trader Vic Mai Tai. So you need 2 ounces of 17-year-old J. Ray and Nephew rum. You need half an ounce of Holland de Kuiper orange Curaçao. That would be like real Curaçao, not the stuff that you see like the crappy bottle jugs on the shelf that cost like $10. You need a 1/4 ounce of French Garnier Orgeat syrup and a 1/4 ounce of rock candy syrup. That one, okay, so and of course juice from one fresh lime. Let's talk through these kind of in reverse. Okay, the lime part is relatively easy, right? Here is one I've just juiced myself. I'm not going to do that on camera again because this IKEA juicer is not very good. So lime's maybe not a problem. We can talk about lime varietals. Are we using key limes or what? But maybe that's not such a huge problem. Orgeat, you can't really get this Garnier stuff anymore, but there's plenty of really good Orgeat around. You can make yourself. I have this Liquid Alchemist version lying around. It is delicious. From there, it kind of gets harder, right? I mean, you got your shaker here. Sure, absolutely. You can make all sorts of syrups at home. Rock candy syrup. No one knows exactly what Trader Vic's was, but there's the de facto version folks use these days is basically 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. And then Curaçao. Curaçao is tricky because the only, so far as I'm aware, the only producer still making Curaçao on actually the Isle of Curaçao is Senor, and I don't really like Senor that much. I think it's too sweet. But if basically what you're talking about is a pot-distilled brandy-based liqueur infused with orange peel, well, I mean, you can go out and get Grand Marnier or something, right? I mean, I like Grand Marnier. It's too expensive for what it is, but I do actually like it more than the Ferrand's dry Curaçao, for what that's worth. So I'm just gonna use this. But from there, it is basically impossible, right? Because the base of this stuff is 17-year-old Ray and Nephew. And again, nobody knows the exact specs on this thing. There are a few bottles still floating around. But what we're talking about is probably almost certainly a pot distilled rum because Jamaica did not really have column stills up until like the 70s, I think. So pot distilled, almost certainly low ester, probably aged in American oak, but probably not ex-bourbon, but in any case American oak. So really, really old pot distilled rum. And imagine trying to find that these days. It's going to be like extortionately expensive, right? Even if you're trying to do the second version, the first Hawaiian version, where Trader Vic swapped out the 17-year-old Ray and Nephew, which he basically used up the world supply of, for a 15-year-old Ray and Nephew. Where the hell are you going to find a reasonably priced 15-year-old low ester pot distilled rum out there to be able to that's cost effective to throw into cocktails. I mean, there basically isn't such a thing. So you sort of have to find all these substitutes and wait, what is that? What is this here in the corner of the screen? Oh, I remember this. This is a Chairman's Reserve single cask. This is a Vinny's pick. And it is, well, look at that. It is a 15-year-old. And it's also aged in bourbon cask, so American oak. And so this can be pot distilled and pretty low ester. It's also cask strength. So that's a little bit unusual because the Wray & Nephew 17 was probably 45%. But, this is not Jamaican, but it's roughly in a Jamaican style. And so could you try to make a Mai Tai out of something like this? It's not expensive either. This is not cheap by any means. It's about $100 a bottle, but you could make you could presumably, theoretically, make something pretty close to the original spec, maybe with something like this. So that's my project for today. Can we use some of the new breed of old pot distilled rums now coming out, particularly from St. Lucia distillers, Chairman's Reserve, but from other places too, like Guyana is starting to crank this stuff out. Jamaica is starting to crank this stuff out. There's some old Worthy Parks floating around, some independent bottling picks that are well worth your interest. But today I'm going to use this. So I'm going to play around with the recipe a little bit, but stick to it pretty close. I did use the original recipe in my first couple of trials of this, but I've since adjusted it. So basically, we're gonna start where Trader Vic does. 2 ounces of our 15-year-old rum. Now, I should probably take this shit out. Sorry, I am bad at this. I don't do a lot of cocktailing. Now, you will say, but this is like 61% odd alcohol, right? I mean, so with the original Wray & Nephew being 45 or so, shouldn't you weaken that somehow? Shouldn't you add less rum? Shouldn't you add some water in to go along with that? And no, I don't think I will. We're gonna go a full 2 ounces of this. Now that does create some issues, and we'll get into that later. Actually, let's get into that now. 2 ounces. Okay, so I found I did have to make some adjustments to my taste and to just, get used to the extra oomph of this to the original recipe. Because first of all, I found the Orgeat was being lost a little bit. So instead of using a 1/4 ounce, which the original recipe calls for, I'm going to use a full 1/2 ounce to get some extra almondy goodness in there. And just get a little bit of extra, but you have to be careful with that because Orgeat is quite sweet. This is as sweet as simple syrup is. So to compensate for that, instead of using rock syrup, this is actually a bottle of regular old simple syrup. And I'm just going to use a 1/4 ounce of this. This also means you don't have to go through the trouble of actually making rock syrup for yourself. I just realized I didn't bring my ice with me, so I forgot to get it out of the fridge. So I may pause this and go run to get that. And we're just going to do our standard 1/2 ounce of our Curaçao substitute, the Grand Marnier. Nope, whatever. Our lime can also go right in. Yay! So as soon as I get my ice, I can dump it right into this little mixture here. Oh god, that smells good. And we'll get to go. Now, you may be saying to yourself, perhaps, I mean, you probably aren't, but in theory, let's say you say, okay, well, maybe you could make something akin to the one of the first two Trader Vic's Mai Tai recipes. using this stuff, but you couldn't actually duplicate the second version, right? Because, well, no, it would be the third version, right? Because that uses, it swaps out half of the 15-year-old Wray and Nephew for a Martinician rum. Where are you going to get a Martinician rum that's going to stand up to something like this? I mean, Trader Vic's choice of rum seemed to have been driven by excessive nuttiness. He really, 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 really seemed to have wanted a very nutty rum. And where are you going to get that from Martinique, huh? Well, okay, you could try this. How about Rhum J.M. 2005? This is a vintage release. I think it's 10 years old, although they don't say. But I believe this is a 10-year-old. And it is probably the nuttiest rum I have ever tried. It is so nutty that the rumminess kind of gets lost a little bit. Now, you may still so what you could do is basically do a split base between your Chairman's Reserve 15 and your Rhum Jam. But you might still complain. But wait. According to Smuggler's Cove and other sites of research, the Martinician rum used in the third version of the Mai Tai was very possibly not a rum agricole. It was not cane juice based, so this is the wrong thing. Okay, well, you would be using something more like this, right? This is the Grand Marnier from Le Galion distillery on Martinique, and it is considerably more estery than that, and it is not aged also. So which one of these would you use? I mean, why not both, right? So why not make a split base featuring half an ounce of this, a light half an ounce, because it is pretty darn aggressive, and also half an ounce, a slightly heavier half ounce, of your very, very nutty Rhum J.M. And then you throw this in this second shaker, which is secretly one of my daughter's sippy cups, in here, along with an ounce of your Chairman's Reserve. I actually really like this split base a lot. I've tried it just neat, and it's delicious. But you know, this is kind of an attempt to re-engineer what that second or third Mai Tai might have been about. So I'm gonna do two Mai Tais here. I'm gonna do this, which is gonna be closer to the second version, I suppose. And I'm gonna do this, which is gonna be closer to the third version. So I have to run and get my ice anyway. So I'm gonna pause and finish up mixing this stuff up, shake everything up, and pour them into my glasses for you. So we're gonna pause briefly. And we're back. So I have just finished shaking these things. I should have used, I had every intention of crushing my ice, but I panicked and didn't. But what we're gonna do, what we have got here in my shaker proper, I have got the entirely Chairman's Reserve base. And we're gonna just pour all of that into my Glengoyne tumbler. You can use a proper glass if you really want to. And the split base with the Martinician rums goes into my ball jar here. I'm just going to garnish both of these with a mint leaf. You should really use a full sprig of mint, but I happen to use like pretty much all of my wife's mint making lamb last night, so these get leaves. And let's see what we got here. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, so this version is entirely, these are both the same recipe, except with this I'm using the 2 ounces Chairman's Reserve, and this the split base. That is a hell of a good Mai Tai. One of my problems with this, the Chairman's Reserve, is it's a little bit too oaky. A little bit too oak forward for my taste, and not enough kind of rum forward. But this is kind of taking those elements and turning them to its advantage, because it's kind of saying, hey, we want nutty here because this is a Mai Tai. It's kind of turning it to its advantage. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to drink 2 Mai Tais. I'm gonna be gone for the rest of the night. Aha. On the nose of the second one, I'm starting to get some of those heavier esters from the Grand Aroma. Again, you really don't want to be using more than about half an ounce of that, because it tends to bully the rest of the ingredients. Oh, that's also very good. Actually comes across a little cleaner, a little brighter. There's a little bit more pineapple that comes in on the back end of that. It's almost, it's less nutty, which I wasn't expecting, considering the amount of nut on this Rhum J.M. I haven't reviewed this yet. I have to talk about this at some point. But I mean, almost equally good. Hang on, let me see which one I like more. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. This is a hair bit less booze forward, and it almost makes it feel a little bit sweeter. So I'm getting the sweets, the sweet elements in this a little bit more forward. Whereas this, yeah, the rum is taking over a little bit more. I don't know, man. I think this is a draw. I mean, they're pretty close. I mean, they're showing half of the base is the same, right? They're actually pretty close in the way they're delivering what they got. Sipping on the porch, I think I actually prefer this one, the split base. Something about that, the hint of extra sweetness, and the cleanness, and the extra kind of fruit, especially coming in on the back end, makes me prefer it. But oh man, yeah, something to just to show off. How do I put this? Like the beauty of the Mai Tai. I almost like this one better. I don't know how to articulate the differences. I like these both for slightly different reasons. Anyhow, that's a Mai Tai video, basically all dispensed with. Again, I'll put all of that below. The fun part of the weirdest part of this is probably just the split base. Ounce of this Grand Arome, or I'm sorry, half an ounce of the Grand Arome, and half an ounce of the Rhum J.M. 2005. Very, very good split base, even for just sipping neat, by the way. And that's what I got. I like both of these very much. I'm going to be very drunk in about 20 minutes, so I will stop the video here. Thanks for watching, and cheers.